Welcome to the Startup Grind.
I'm going to read a little bit of information about Nick, and I couldn't read his whole bio because it would take a really, really long time. Nick is the president and co-founder of ÉCollege Hunks Hauling Junk. It's the largest and fastest growing US-based junk removal franchise opportunity. He was named to the top 30 entrepreneurs in America under 30 by Inc. magazine, top 35 under 35. He's an E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year finalist, an active board member of the Entrepreneurs Organization, a global company comprised of founders in high-growth companies. He's been featured in numerous business books and textbooks, as well as Forbes, Fortune. He was recently featured in Newsweek, the ÉCollege Kid to Millionaire, along with the founders of FedEx, Dell, Facebook, Google, and Microsoft, which is a pretty prestigious honor. And we actually never pay our speakers. So I'd like to ask that everybody kind of stand up and give a big round of applause to Nick for taking the time to be here. Awesome. Cool. All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. Tonight we're gonna give away some copies of Nick's book, and that's just been released, and Matt somewhere around, he's holding them for me. There, okay, all right, good. So we're going to try to do it with some trivia questions as we go through, so we'll see how much you actually know about this guy. And if we don't get them all done by the end, then we'll let Nick ask questions to see if he can figure out who to give them to. All right, so can we kind of go back to like when you were a kid?
Sure.
And by the way, his mom and dad are here, so if he lies, they can call him out. Yeah, so his family's at the table over here, his mom, his dad, his wife, and I believe her mother, correct? Awesome. So when you were a kid growing up, right, what did you actually want to be when you grew up?
When I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a basketball player. That was my dream.
Me too.
And I was brought up kind of a very traditional upbringing. You know, study hard, get good grades, get into a good college, and get a good job after you graduate. That was kind of the way I was raised. So I knew I wanted to be successful. I didn't really know what that meant exactly. I got into a lot of trouble in class, talked out of turn quite often. Didn't sit still very well, and looking back now, it's easy to see that those were some of the elements that are, maybe common in entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. I took a lot of risks, got a lot of stitches, and so that was probably, I guess, a good way to sum up my childhood. But I certainly didn't grow up saying I wanted to be a trash man, which is actually, the type of company that we're running now. So.
Yeah, we had our guest last month. He actually fractured his skull jumping a bicycle off of his house as a kid. So yeah, I kind of get that. So one of the questions is, how many people, if anybody can answer where Nick went to school, to high school? No? No? Where?
No,
that doesn't work. All right, where Nick went to college?
US. Who said Pomona?
Pomona's that's the right answer. Okay, so he gets a book.
Nice. First book.
So you played basketball when you were in school, right?
Yeah, so I did end up going to college and playing basketball. It was a Division III school because I wasn't quite good enough to play at the big time level. I wanted to maybe one day play professionally, but realized my hoop dreams were going to be cut a lot shorter than most. So had to figure out a plan B on how I was going to make my riches, and
okay.
Eventually, I guess hauling junk became that path.
All right, that's cool. And so you have a co-founder. Who knows who Nick's co-founder is? Book number 2?
Good job, Don.
Well, we'll do some that are easy. Some are going to be a little bit more difficult.
What color shirt does he have on?
That's a good one. I like
That's
it.
right. It means you're sitting in the front row, if you can see that.
So, talking about your co-founder, right, and kind of how you got started. How long do you guys know each other?
So Omar and I went to high school together in Washington, D.C. So we tell people that we were kind of partners in crime in high school, and now we're partners in business. And it was actually the summer before our senior year of college. We were just back in Washington, D.C. for summer vacation. And he had gone to University of Miami in Florida. I went to, as has already been mentioned, Pomona College, a small school out in California. And we were just home for summer vacation. And like I mentioned earlier, we were just kind of brought up for the typical notion of get an internship, build up your resume so you can get a good job after you graduate. And his mom had an old furniture store and a beat-up cargo van that she would use for the furniture deliveries. So she basically said, listen, you guys aren't going to be sitting around going to the pool all summer. You got to get out and do something. And, you know, take the cargo van, go do something around town with it. And so after probably a couple beers, the name ÉCollege Hunks Hauling Junk got thrown out. And it kind of sat for a second and laughed about it at first. And like, well, it actually kind of has a catchy ring to it. So we just put it on computer printout flyers and, you know, went around town sticking it in mailboxes. And people had a need for the service, and they liked the name. So, you know, that was really when the light bulb went off for me that there's actually something else that could be done aside from kind of following that traditional path.
Okay. But now, I guess a couple of questions about the company. Then we come back to like not following the traditional path, because I have a question on that. You and Omar really have different personalities. I mean, I met Omar too. How does that work out in business? So
a lot of people, you know, they'll start businesses with their friends or their family, and most of the time it's because they feel comfortable with that person, and that's really an important piece of it. But the other thing that's been really important for the success of our partnership is that our vision and our values have always been in alignment, and that's really been, I think, the #1 key to any successful partnership, whether it's a marriage or a business partnership. If the vision and the values are kind of in, you know, going in different directions, then ultimately, you know, you don't have any real continuity in the business. So a couple things that Omar and I will do is we'll sit down and actually write out our own personal vision for the business, what we see it looking like, feeling like, you know, 3-5 years from now, and then we'll get together and, you know, share what each other wrote down and try to, you know, come to an alignment. And personality-wise, I always tell people, you know, Omar was the first person to go out and buy an iPhone and Apple products, and I still have a BlackBerry and a PC. So, you know, I'm kind of more like, you know, that TV commercial where there's like, hey, I'm an Apple and I'm a PC. I'm more the PC guy, so I'm a little bit more like the operational nuts and bolts, you know, obsessive compulsive about every little detail. Omar's a little bit more laid back, you know, everything will just kind of fall into place. He comes up with some pretty creative ideas and problem solving when it comes down to it. So he's more of the visionary and I'm more of the problem, you know, execution integrator guy. And that's, you know, I finally got the iPhone, by the way. I'm still holding fast a little bit to the BlackBerry, but I'm juggling the iPhone 6 now. So Omar brought me over to that side. I couldn't.
Brought you to the dark side of it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. So how do you, so it's good. I mean, I think diversity in founders is a good thing. You know, the best teams that I've been a part of, there was a lot of diversity in the founding team. I think if you can not kill each other, it works out really well.
Well, we've had a lot of fist fights, especially early on, you know, when it was like arguing over, you know, who was going to take to when we were still doing the physical work ourselves, hauling the junk ourselves, you know, who was going to wake up at 5 a.m. to go empty out the truck for that day's jobs. You know, we would get into, you know, actual physical altercations, which was more, you know, an element of us just being buddies, you know, at the time. But like I said, our vision in terms of where we were going and our values, what we believed in, were always in alignment. So no matter what kind of arguments we were having about, you know, petty day-to-day stuff, we would always get back to the bigger picture, which was where we were going to go with the company.
So how do you, when you have a real disagreement like today in business, right? Because like, I think you guys are buddies. You've worked together for a long enough time that you kind of know, but sometimes you reach this impasse. How do you guys deal with that? So how do you break a tie?
I mean, we honestly, in 10 years of being business partners, we've never really had an impasse that one person wouldn't eventually give to the other. And I think that's kind of been the key, you know, whether it's compromising or, you know, one person just voices a more compelling case for their, you know, idea or for their, you know, way of going about it. I mean, we involve our team members and our employees a lot more, and our franchise owners and you know, our mentors and advisors a lot more, and the decision making and you know, ideas presented to the business. So it's not just me and Omar, you know, pulling all the strings of the company at this point. So, you know, he and I might have different disagreements, but then we engage and involve more people to kind of help get a more holistic view of whatever that issue may be.
Okay. And so you started in high school, right, or in college, right?
Yep.
Kind of on break, right, going back and forth. But then you guys both went out and got corporate jobs.
Yeah, so after the first summer before our senior year, we went back to school for our senior year of college, and we would be sitting in class and the cell phone would still be ringing and people would be like, hey, is this the ÉCollege Hunks? We need you to come, you know, haul my stuff away. And I'd be like, well, I'm in economics class in California, so I can't really do that for you. But Omar called me and was saying that he wanted to write a business plan and enter into an entrepreneurship competition. And so we thought that was a great idea, and it ended up winning first prize out of about 150 entries. So that gave us a little more confidence in the idea, a little more credibility to the concept. I always tell people that, and we actually won some money from that business plan competition, and people will always say, okay, well, so that's when you started the business, was with that seed money. And when you're in college, you're not really thinking about, well, I should say, you're thinking about next weekend, you're not really thinking about next year.
So you guys had a lot of fun with the money.
So yeah, well, Omar, we were second semester seniors in college. Omar was down in South Beach, and the money we won doesn't go that far down there.
Right.
So I don't think it made it to graduation. And aside from that point, we were always, like I said, brought up to follow the traditional career path. So we thought, okay, this business plan will look great on our resume that we can go out and get jobs. So we actually did go out and get consulting jobs after we graduated from college. And I remember, waking up for work every day, going and doing the work. And it's not just about having a job, but it was the type of work I was doing. It just felt very unfulfilling. And I just really didn't see any, purpose or path to what I was doing. And I said to myself, I can't do this the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life. And that business plan sitting on the shelf there was just kind of staring me in the face every day. So I emailed Omar and said, what's our timeline for starting this business that we did last summer and that we wrote a business plan for? And he must have been feeling the same thing, because he emailed me back, all capital letters, my timeline's right now, let's do this, exclamation point, exclamation point. So we quit our jobs, and as you can imagine, our parents were a little bit skeptical. We had just graduated from college, we had just gotten corporate positions that they were proud to tell their friends and family about, and we were literally throwing it away to start a junk removal company called ÉCollege Hunks hauling junk. So a little bit of skepticism from the friends and family, but we had the vision and the passion at that point, so we quit our jobs and started hauling junk ourselves shortly after college.
So how long did the two of you just do the work yourself?
Well, when we first started, we had never had any real formal training on entrepreneurship, on business ownership, on growing a business. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of energy when we first started, but we were doing all the work ourselves. We were driving the truck, answering the phone, hauling the junk at the same time, and people would call. We'd have the 800 number routed to our cell phones. So I'd be multitasking and sometimes swerving a little bit. People would call the 800 number to complain about the driving. I'd be the one in the driver's seat, answering the phone, apologizing and saying, listen, we don't condone this type of driving in our business. We'll talk to those guys when they get back to the office. So I probably fired ourselves 3 or 4 times that first summer. For me, that was my biggest first lesson in business. And honestly, we started to burn ourselves out a little bit. It's a lot of fun when you first get started, but you're waking up at 5 a.m. to go empty out the truck, and then you spend all day hauling the junk, then you're, doing paperwork and bookkeeping at night and calling back customers. And I'm saying, okay, well, this was exciting the first couple weeks, but I can't be doing this. I'm gonna, there's only so much physical junk that I can haul. And then we read the book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
Okay.
And that's really all about working on the business, not in the business, creating systems so that your business can scale, you can replicate yourself. And so we started doing that, and we started writing manuals and checklists. How do we drive the truck? How do we wear the uniform? How do we greet the customer? How do we answer the phone? We started creating alias email addresses, PR@collegehunkshaulingjunk.com, marketing@collegehunkshaulingjunk.com, and we would answer them ourselves at first. We were, the chef, cook, and bottle washer at the beginning, but then we would at least create manuals and systems so that we could have, somebody else driving the truck, and then ultimately get a second truck, third truck, fourth truck, and that systemization is actually what's allowed us to then be able to replicate the model into franchising, which is, the path we've been on.
It's cool. It's actually, you guys have done some interesting things. So one of the questions, so they started their business, right? You guys actually were in business in 2005, correct? Mm-hmm. When did they start franchising? Anybody can answer that question? What year?
2010.
No. 2009? No. 2008.
Here we go. Good job. Books are flying off the shelf.
It had to be after 5, right? I mean, it had to be somewhere after 5. But you guys have done some interesting things, right? I don't think most people even know how many jobs you guys have created, because in your business, you've kind of maintained control of your brand by routing things back through centralized control that follows your systems. Talk a little bit about that and kind of how you've done that and the why behind it.
Absolutely. Well, I think anybody who's going to be successful as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, has to, what Stephen Covey says in his book, The 7 Habits of Successful Individuals, one of his 7 habits is start with the end in mind. So you kind of have to have a vision for the future. And, Omar and I are, just like everybody here in this audience, we're students of entrepreneurship. So we go to a lot of conferences, we hear a lot of speakers. And, one common theme that I always see is, they say the most successful business owners and entrepreneurs that I've seen are very effective at sort of visualizing the future, communicating it really well, and then inspiring the people around them to want to be a part of it to make it a reality. And so for us, our vision was to be a national brand. And we didn't want to just be a national brand of junk haulers. We wanted to be a brand that was respected and celebrated for its creative marketing and brand positioning, for its company culture and employee empowerment philosophies. And so that was kind of our vision. And then we created systems so that we could replicate our vision not only locally, but ultimately nationally. And franchising was the most effective way for us to do that, to go into other markets by leveraging the support and effort of an independent business owner that wants to maybe start their own business, not from the starting blocks, but halfway through a relay race. We tell our franchise owners it's like you're starting from third base as opposed to home plate. They just got to bring it on home. Right. And so we started franchising, and part of our franchise support offering to our franchise owners was to have a central call center that booked the appointments when people would call the 800 number, so that our franchise owner wouldn't have to be the one answering the phone, going to a networking event, driving the truck, doing all these sort of different things. All our franchise owners have to do is hire the college hunks, the guys that do the heavy lifting, and then go do the networking, meeting with the property managers and realtors. So we kind of say our franchise owners are like the coach or the professor from the sideline. They're doing the hiring and managing, and we're doing the catching on the call center side. So we set up a call center, and actually that's why we moved down to Tampa. We started our business up in DC, but when we started franchising, we were having a real difficult time hiring good people to answer the phone. And it was really expensive up in the DC area to get office space. And
we are the call center capital of the world here.
Well, there's a lot of call centers. We looked at other cities. There's a lot of them in Kentucky and Arizona and Texas and the Midwest. But, Pods, the portable storage franchise, they actually had their headquarters over in Clearwater. And we test called their call center, and it was just a really, impeccable process that they had. And at the time, I think they had like 250 call center agents, and they were targeting kind of the same customer we were. So we were like, wow, if they could do it there, we could do it there. And so we actually hired their call center director, is now our call center director. So that worked out well.
Coaching's good. I support that.
So that's what we moved down here back in 2008, and now we've got, I guess, about over 52 franchises and probably over 1,000 employees nationwide almost.
Yeah, just pretty crazy. I mean, it's a lot of job creation. How do you decide? So because you guys, and you are a brand, I want to talk a lot about your marketing tonight, because you guys do it extremely well. Because of how you structure things, when you go to hire an employee, right, to be an actual employee versus a franchise, owner, what kind of questions do you ask to make sure they're going to actually fit? Because you guys do have a unique culture, and you've done some cool things. I mean, everything from crazy parades to, all kinds of stuff.
To reality TV.
All
that kind of craziness. Yeah, no, absolutely. So a mantra in our company is you hire for attitude and you train for skill. One easy litmus test that we tell our franchise owners when they're interviewing employees is, does the person you're interviewing, does he or she smile at a natural resting state? Right. Because if they're coming in with a bad attitude to the interview, how do you think they're going to react when they're in the customer's home and something goes difficult, or they're on a difficult move or a difficult job? Right. So we look for generally happy people, number one, and if they've got a happy demeanor, good, positive, upbeat attitude, we can train somebody how to move a couch and wrap a piece of furniture and load it onto a truck, but you can't really teach somebody to, put a smile on a customer's face, if they're having a stressful day, which we all know moving is probably, statistics show moving is number 3 next to death and divorce as the most stressful time in people's lives. So, we have a pretty lofty opportunity to impact people emotionally. So that's number one. That's before we even ask questions. But number 2, we ask people, our employees, even our frontline, $8, $9, $10 an hour employees, what are your goals? What is it that you're looking for in your next job opportunity? We ask them what accomplishments are they most proud of from their previous job or class or school experience. Because if somebody can't communicate a success that they had and how they achieved that success, then they probably don't have the ambition or the drive to be successful in our organization. And we have a set of core values that we really emphasize and abide by, and it's all about one of them is building leaders. And so we don't just want to hire professional movers and junk haulers. We want to hire guys or girls that want to be successful and learn skills while they're at our company that they can apply to their future endeavors. And so those are the type of people we look for when we do our hiring. And it seems to work. It seems to work out well because our customers aren't buying me or our franchise owners. The customers are buying the college hunks, the guys that are coming into the home doing the physical work. So we have to make sure that and we don't anticipate that everybody's going to be a Captain Universe muscle man. So we actually came up with an acronym, by the way, for Hunks, which stands for honest, uniformed, nice, knowledgeable service. And so by that definition, I tell people I still qualify. So we look for that friendly, personable, clean-cut, collegiate individual that's going to be the face of the brand out in the community.
No, I mean I think it makes a lot of sense, and I mean the guys that I see around who've worked for you, definitely follow that. When you talk about scaling, right? So we talk a lot at Startup Grind about scaling businesses, and how do you, and in a product company, right? There's lots of things that go around it. But it seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, that like a franchise, if done correctly, is the ultimate in a scalable business. Is that true?
Well, I think franchising is one way to expand a brand without having to physically pay for and open up each separate location. So we could, to get 52 locations, we could have literally gone and hired a manager and put it in that city and set up an office, but it would have cost us a lot more money and it would have cost us a lot more time and energy to go do that. With franchising, we actually get somebody who, wants to be a business owner, wants to be in business for themselves, but not by themselves. So we describe our franchise owners as really investors in a common enterprise, which is the brand of College Hunks Hauling Junk, and they have their own individual, location that they can own and operate and grow to be successful. So it's absolutely a great example of scaling. But somebody could scale a business, organically themselves, if they have the cash flow to do it, or if they have the outside investment to do it. So we could have gone and borrowed, let's say $5 million and opened up 50 locations or what have you.
Right.
But it's just another, I guess, sort of expansion tool that entrepreneurs can choose from. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's the only way to scale.
No, but so when did you realize that the business was actually successful? So you guys sit back and you're like, when did you wake up and you're like, wow, this is actually a success?
Well, honestly, probably you mentioned that Newsweek thing. That was probably the first time where I was like, wow, I can't believe that they put us in the same category as those guys. There's probably a few zeros missing from our balance sheet compared to those tech moguls like Zuckerberg and Fred Smith from FedEx. But that was probably the first time when I saw that article. I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. We've obviously accomplished something to have a group like that recognize us.
That's awesome. So I heard also that you don't like it when people complain about growing pains. Do you want to talk about that?
In business?
Yeah.
Well, I think complaining in general is just a bad habit that everybody has, myself included. But I think, when you're an entrepreneur, it's not easy. One of our mentors told Omar and I when we first started the company that being an entrepreneur is like lighting your hair on fire and trying to put it out with a hammer. So, and Omar and I both have a lot less hair than we did when we started the business.
Oh, well, okay.
I think that there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be challenges, but part of the key to being successful is the mind game, is the mindset of, enduring whatever sort of landscape that the economy or your business or your customers, your employees, or your investors or whatever put in front of you. You just gotta have to kind of look at it as a game and a challenge, and not as something that you can really complain about. So I find myself complaining, and try to remind myself that it doesn't help anybody. So I try to encourage other people, our employees, our franchise owners, our customers as well, to kind of keep saying, although customers, you can't really tell them not to complain. You have to listen to them when they complain.
So talk about a little bit about challenges. So what's the biggest challenge that you guys have faced in building the business?
We just face a lot of little ones along the way. There's none that I can really pinpoint. And I think this could also maybe just be something that I've maybe blocked out a lot of the setbacks. I mean, we've had issues. Probably like, the bigger you get, the more problems that you run into. There's,
Sure.
There's people that, complain about, the business. There's, franchise owners maybe perhaps that feel like they're expecting more support, or employees that feel like they're not, fulfilled. And so, learning from each of those experiences is and being able to become less and less sort of personally impacted when those types of things arise, I think is important. But I use a lot, because I played sports, I think I use a lot of sports analogies when it comes to business. And so if you look at the best athletes that are out there, I mean, they have very short-term memories. I mean, they don't remember the last missed shot. They don't remember the last loss. They don't remember the last injury. They're just thinking about the next game, the next opportunity, the next win. And so, for me, I try not to dwell on any setbacks or negatives, and that's why it's probably usually hard for me to answer that question.
Okay, so I'll turn around on you then. All right, so I've been a lot like you. I've been called a rabble-rouser, right? I played basketball in college and kind of all those other things, and a troublemaker, right? And I think that's normal. I got, Joy Wright talks too much in class on every report card from the time I was like 5, right? But I've been an entrepreneur. How would you make me a better entrepreneur if I were to buy a ÉCollege Hunks franchise?
Well, the best analogy that I've been able to come up with for a franchise is almost like a gym membership for a business. Because somebody has fitness goals, right? And they go out and join a gym, and they get access to all the different equipment. They get access to the workout systems. They get access to personal trainers, workout buddies to help hold each other accountable. But ultimately, it's still up to the person to wake up every morning and go use the gym membership. And
Sure.
That's why gyms are so successful, is because they sell a lot of memberships, and
Half the people don't come.
Half the people don't come.
Right.
With franchising, you're buying a business in a box. You're buying the best practices and know-how and systems about how to have a successful business. And there's 1,000 different franchise concepts out there, whether it's ÉCollege Hunks or McDonald's or TCBY or Subway or whatever else. There's thousands of them out there. And so really what you're buying is a business system and how to hire, how to train, how to market, how to manage, how to grow, how to network. And we have all those things documented. So, everything that we've sort of learned through, our trial and error, we've experienced it and moved that out of the way of what works and what doesn't work, so that our franchise owners, like I said, can kind of start halfway through the relay race as opposed to from the starting blocks. Another analogy I like to use actually with franchising, is, let's say you had an idea, or let's say you wanted to grow a tree and you went out and bought a seed. You just plant the seed into a little piece of dirt, and you got to grow it into a little, sapling, and then eventually grow it big enough where you can go put it in the yard. Or you can go down to the landscaping nursery and buy a 3-foot tall sapling and put it right into the yard. I think with franchising, it's kind of like you're buying the 3-foot sapling that's already grown. You just have to grow it to the next level. So you don't have to just take an idea from complete scratch, develop the brand, develop the website, develop the marketing systems, the operational tools, and everything else.
Right. So is it more, so you've grown your employees a lot. I mean, you guys do things like, you have, actually an employee comes to you with an idea, you kind of incentivize them to go back and figure it out and bring it back as a business plan, right? So you're nurturing entrepreneurship that way. You have your franchises. Is one more gratifying than the other? Because I think, somebody told me, when I really early in my career, my boss said to me, when you get promoted, right, you start to lead people. He's like, now you have to learn to live vicariously through the success of others. It's kind of a crazy thing, right? But there's a lot of truth to that. So is it gratifying to you to kind of sit back and say like, wow, I've created the system, but now I really help all these other people achieve their goals too?
Yeah, well, we've definitely sort of moved on to, I think, the next phase of being owners, to the point where now we can actually afford to hire people smarter than we are, and we can actually, get out of their way and let them operate and facilitate and really just grow the business to the next level and where it's going. So, our role has become much more, sort of visionary and facilitating and creating alignment within the organization, as opposed to us making every single decision about how to do this and how to do that. So we've been, it's actually kind of a breath of fresh air to the point where now we actually have team members that can do things that we couldn't do or we didn't know how to do, whether that's on, franchise operations or IT or marketing
Sure.
or call center. Whereas when we first started, we didn't have a big outside capital fund that we could go out and hire the subject matter experts. So we either had to do it all ourselves, kind of plunge our way through it, or hire people that kind of knew how to do it, but maybe really didn't. And so I think that's common experience that a lot of entrepreneurs go through is when you start and you've got kind of limited resources, you kind of just play with the deck that you have
Sure.
available to you. And some people that you had early on in the business, some people we had early on in the business that helped us get to say, 5 or 6 franchises, they weren't the right person to get us to 50 and beyond. And so there's that difficult, situation where you have to have that conversation with somebody and say, hey, listen, you've been great, you helped us get us here, but we need to get somebody else who can get us to the next level. And we talk about that a lot with our team now is, making sure they continue to fine tune their skills and learn and grow so that they can continue with the journey, all the way to 150 in franchises and beyond.
So what would you say is the best piece of career advice you've ever gotten, or business advice?
I've gotten a few different pieces. I think the work on the business, not in the business, is a mantra that we tell ourselves all the time. It's really important. Starting with the vision and then working back to the present and then having a game plan to make the vision a reality and being so kind of pig-headed disciplined to do whatever it takes to make the vision a reality is another piece of advice. Stay hungry and stay humble is a piece of advice that was given to me by actually a guy. He's a Sports Center anchor on ESPN, and he said he gives that piece of advice to all the athletes he comes into contact with, and that's a really good piece of advice because we all get excited when you get a big award or a big piece of PR or all of a sudden you had this big milestone in your business, but we all saw what happens when businesses get complacent a couple years ago with the economy and the kind of the perfect
Right.
storm. Some of the biggest companies that we thought were could never be knocked down, went bankrupt. And so staying focused. And the last piece of advice, sorry, I know you asked for one, but
it's okay.
as entrepreneurs, we all suffer from a little bit of ADD, which, I like to say stands for all damn day. But, it's really like we like to chase. We like to chase.
I like that. It's a good quote.
We like to chase the next shiny thing. We get a new idea here, we get another idea there. We kind of chase different ideas. And we end up being a mile wide and an inch deep and not really going anywhere with one core idea. So a piece of advice a guy said to me was, you can't ride more than one horse at the same time. He didn't say it as politely. He actually said you can't sit on more than one toilet at the same time. But it's I like the horse analogy a little bit better. Of course, I was telling our financial controller that, and he said, well, that's of course unless you have a chariot, then you can have multiple horses. And I was like, well, that's true. But he's like, but you don't want a chariot with one horse and one donkey because then it's going to be running in circles. So you gotta figure out which horse you're going to bet on in the business side of things and just focus in on that horse. And we've had to do that. I mean, we've chased other business ventures, and really it boils down to there's only so much time and money that can be allocated to a business venture. And so for me and Omar, if we're going to start another venture, which we have done some successfully, some unsuccessfully, we're only going to do it really as absentee owners or as investors, not as president and owner over here,
Right.
president and owner over here, president and owner over here, because now we're dividing up our efforts 3 different ways, and we're 1/3 effective here, 1/3 effective there, 1/3 effective here.
Actually, that's a really good thing. So anybody who can name one of the businesses or the other business that Nick pitched when he was on Shark Tank. Oh, that's
Got it.
Okay.
Another book for this
And
man.
the book.
Yeah, College Foxes Packing Boxes was
right.
the...
I'm a boat owner, so I like the college hotties washing yachties.
And then we also had College Hotties Washing Yachties.
Yes.
That was another one. Boat cleaning service. So we could probably sit here and come up with all kinds of different rhyming names that sound good on.
Really sound good, and it's like.
Yeah.
So actually, how many? We'll do another one. How many reality TV shows has Nick appeared on?
I actually
No.
don't even know that answer. Maybe just say name one of them.
There we go.
Besides Shark Tank.
Besides Shark Tank. Yep.
House Hunters. She gets a book.
And good job, Matt. Go the other way. So actually, I know at least 5, right? At least 5. So this is a good segue into the branding part because you guys like rock at marketing.
So there's a book that we read early on in our business called The Purple Cow. It was by Seth Godin. Really easy read, really easy book. I'd highly recommend it. And the notion of it is if you're driving down a country road and you see a field of brown cows, you don't really take notice. You keep driving. But if there's a purple cow, that's pretty remarkable. You're going to pull your car over. You're going to take pictures of it. You're going to post it on social media. You're going to talk about it. You're going to go tell your friends and neighbors about it. And the idea behind that is in a business or in a brand, you want to be a purple cow. You want to be able to stand out not only from a brand perspective, but more importantly from a service or product experience standpoint. So for us, we're in a very crowded industry. Moving and hauling, it's been around since the Stone Ages. There's thousands of companies doing it. There's big companies, small companies, mom and pop shops, and it's kind of fragmented across the board. So for us to stand out, obviously the name is catchy, the colors are bright, that catches your attention. That's kind of the purple cow on the brand side. But then the service side is really where we had to, dig in and create some processes so we could actually leave a positive experience for our customers and attempt to do that every time. Because when we first started, we thought, okay, the name is catchy enough, we'll put the truck out on the corner, people will call us and have a need for it. But when they realized that the service that they were getting, at least when we started, was probably no different than, just calling, Bob with a pickup truck to come haul their junk away or come move their stuff, then people were like, well, it's a catchy name, but it's the same service, so just call Bob because he's half the price. So, for us, we were like, okay, well, there's a reason people wait in line for Starbucks to pay $4 or $5 for coffee when they could go to the gas station or 7-Eleven and pay 75 cents. Right. And, some might even argue the coffee doesn't even taste that much better. So, it's the warm environment, it's the, friendly barista, with a fancy name for the small, medium, and large cuts right. and everything like that. And people, literally will line up to pay a premium for it. So for us, the brand was first the name and the color scheme and the logo and everything like that. But it had to go beyond that and had to become sort of the service experience that would allow us to grow and create repeat and referral business.
So you have done some interesting things. Like you guys were on Millionaire Matchmaker, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. So whose idea was it for Omar to drive the truck? Because that just was crazy to pick up his date.
Right. So this was shortly
Great
after
branding,
this
but
was
crazy.
Shortly after we were on Shark Tank. It was the very first episode of Shark Tank that
Yep.
we were on, and the producers from the Millionaire Matchmaker show saw us on that and said, "Hey, we want you to come on this show." And at the time we're like, well, "What are we going to do on the show?" That seemed kind of pointless, but the idea was Omar will pick his date up in the ÉCollege Hunks hauling junk truck. He'll take her to clean out a garage. It'll be, funny for TV, and maybe we'll get some publicity out of it. But we probably sold 4 or 5 franchises from people just seeing the show because Bravo, I guess, doesn't have, at least back then, didn't have a lot of TV shows, so they would rerun that episode like every 5 minutes. And the comment people would tell us when they'd see us out in public is, or at least the guys would always say this, I never watched that show, but my girlfriend was watching it, and I'm like, yeah, sure you don't, but that was pretty crazy, that date you did. But let me find out more about that franchise you guys have. So it ended up being interesting publicity. We've done similar stuff like, we've been on the TLC hoarding shows where we've gone and cleaned out the hoarder houses. We've been on, a couple bar rescue. We just did a big junk hauling job for the TV show Bar Rescue. So, for us, again, the publicity, we're not a big enough company to go out and get a Super Bowl ad. But if we can be in mainstream media, whether it's reality TV, news, articles, whatever the case may be, it's as much exposure, if not more, plus more credibility than a TV ad. So for us, again, it's a way of kind of elevating our brand from the masses of moving and hauling companies that are out there.
That's cool. Well, let's talk about a little bit, because like in your book, right? So let's talk a little bit about the book, because I think it's great for marketing, but it's also interesting. So the title is The Effortless Entrepreneur. What does that mean?
Well, there's a couple meanings behind effortless, because of course we all know there's nothing effortless about being an entrepreneur. It's a lot of hard work.
Right.
But if you look at, say, the best athletes, the best artists, the best musicians, they work very hard at honing their craft, but when you watch them perform or play or do their their work, it appears effortless. And it appears effortless for a couple reasons. Number one, they love what they do. They truly enjoy playing basketball or painting, murals or singing songs. So, if it's something that you enjoy and that you're passionate about, it really doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like effort, and you're actually having fun doing it. So, for us, we never really felt fulfilled or having fun in work until we started the business. And there were hard nights and sleepless nights and challenging times, but at the same time, there were times where you kind of get in this flow and you're having fun, the adrenaline's pumping, you're seeing results, and it feels effortless. And so that's kind of the notion behind it is creating the systems so that you don't have to be the one doing the physical work every single day. So that can be ultimately become effortless component to it, but really just being passionate about it and becoming an expert in it enough where you can actually feel like you're succeeding without actually working, if that makes sense.
It's like the 4-hour work week for entrepreneurs.
It's similar, yeah.
I like it.
Very similar notion to the 4-hour work week. Yep.
Cool. Well, I want to talk a little bit about, so actually, I have one question to ask before we go there. Produced a documentary movie? What?
Well, yeah, that was an example of a horse that we invested in but didn't have to do any work for. So we had a friend of ours who was a movie, it was kind of crazy. He wanted to go to South Africa to write an article about a guy who was the lead drummer for Cream.
Okay.
It was a guy who had gone into obscurity, and so he went there and convinced the guy. Ginger Baker was the drummer's name. He convinced Ginger Baker that he was writing an article for Rolling Stone. Well, he hadn't gotten an article for Rolling Stone. He just convinced Ginger Baker to talk to him. So we gave the seed money for our buddy to go over there and write this article. Once he wrote the article, he sold it to Rolling Stone. So Rolling Stone paid him, another 50 grand or whatever, 30 grand for the article. And then he took that money and made a documentary about Ginger Baker. So we got the producer credits for the movie because, that was the deal we struck with our buddy when he asked to borrow the movie. So because of that, I get to say I'm a producer.
That's okay, that's good. So you guys also do some interesting things like giving back. And I'm not sure a lot of people know about that, but you struck this partnership with Goodwill, right? Talk a little bit about why you did it, right? And what's the impact that it's actually had?
Absolutely. Well, I think community involvement is really important for any business owner. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have business success, make money, be able to have those celebrations, but ultimately, you want to have some sort of community engagement to, help improve the community that you're serving and the community that's using your product or service. So when we first started out, one thing that we wanted to do and have connections with was some sort of education program, because we started in college,
Sure.
because we were a collegiate themed business. So we set up a partnership with a group called College Bound and a group called NFTE, NFTE, which stands for the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. And what they both have in common is they both set up entrepreneurial training programs in inner city public schools, middle schools, and high schools to help teach entrepreneurship to more disadvantaged communities. So we would go in and we would talk to classrooms or donate money for their annual scholarship programs and things like that. And that was really nice because it just felt good. It felt like you were doing something nice, and it kind of tied in with kind of our collegiate origins. The Goodwill relationship came up because we haul away people's stuff, and a lot of stuff we haul away for people actually has a second use or an extra value to it. Isn't truly junk. It isn't truly something that should be disposed of or recycled. So we were talking to Goodwill, and we actually found out that they get a lot of calls from people to pick stuff up, because everybody just assumes, hey, I got all this stuff I want to donate, I'm going to call Goodwill to come pick it up. Well, in most markets that Goodwill is located, they either don't pick stuff up because they don't have the resources to do it, or they're very selective as to the type of stuff they're picking up. So they would actually turn away a ton of these donations. So for a while, we were just bringing them donations off of regular jobs, but then we struck up a partnership with them where when people call them, if Goodwill isn't able to come out and pick it up for them, they'll actually refer that person to us as a third-party service that can pick it up, donate the donatables to Goodwill, dispose of everything else, that's not donatable. And so the impacts, it's huge. We probably do, well over 100 to 200 truckloads a month in each market of
That's
donations. So that creates obviously sales for their stores, and they put that into creating jobs and opportunities for the work placement programs that they have. So that actually is a nonprofit partnership that not only is nice because we're benefiting the community, but also benefits us as an organization.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of, sometimes it's tough because you want to help everybody, and you get calls for sponsorship or in-kind donations, or hey, we need your can your guys come help set up this event or that event, and you, as a for-profit business, you can't do that, or you'll donate yourself out of business. But it's still nice to have that community connection and give back. And for us, we're very, I would say, describe ourselves as a purpose-driven company, and I think that's important for any entrepreneur to be. You don't have to have a complete social mission, but you should have some sort of social purpose, because if you think of like the brands like Apple, Starbucks, Harley, Southwest Airlines, they're all purpose-driven. They're not just about ad dollars and investor returns. So because of that, Southwest Airlines is the only airlines that's often boasted a profit, whereas all the other airlines struggle to do so.
Sure.
So for us as a small business, we came up with our company purpose. We say it's move the world. It's three very, very simple words. It's a literal meaning, but we're also, because we're a moving company, but it also has, the emotional impact that we can have on people. So when we tell that to our employees and our franchise owners, and they're always thinking that in the forefront, not only does it help them deliver a better experience for the customers, which turns into repeat referral business, but also helps them connect and give back to the community more, which I think obviously is important for everybody. So.
No, that's awesome. So, talk a little bit, if you don't mind. So you're part of a mastermind group, right? A lot of people don't really kind of understand exactly what that is, but you're a big proponent of it. So talk a little bit about that and kind of what have you gotten out of it? I mean, you've obviously were a successful entrepreneur before you got into it. Mm-hmm. So what's the value to you?
So the main group that I belong to is called the Entrepreneurs Organization. And I joined that about 7 years ago. I heard about it when we first started the business. I think I read about it in an article. And the Entrepreneurs Organization is for business owners with companies that do over $1 million in revenue or greater. And so at the time when I saw that, I was like, oh, I want to be in that because I'm not doing $1 million in revenue yet. So as soon as I get there, I'm going to join that group. So as soon as we did, I joined the group, and there's other groups just like them, but what they are is a global organization, and they have local chapters, kind of like Startup Grind, but specifically for business owners over a certain size. And they within each chapter, they have smaller groups that they call Forum, which is 7 to 10 of the members that we meet monthly in a confidential environment to basically, I almost describe it as a peer-to-peer mastermind group, as you said, where we don't just talk about things that's going on in our business. We talk about things that's going on in our personal lives, our family lives, our social lives, also the business, because it's all intertwined.
Sure.
And it's really cool because as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you kind of feel like you're out on an island a little bit. You go home if your significant other is not an entrepreneur, you can't really relate, or she or he can't really relate to what it is you're talking about. If your buddies from school or from the gym or whatever aren't entrepreneurs, they work for somebody else, they can't really relate to what it is, the challenges or frustrations you may be having. So if you get around other entrepreneurs from completely unrelated industries but are kind of on the same growth trajectory that you're on, it's pretty cool to see the types of information and feedback and ideas that can be shared. So, if I'm having a certain problem in my business and I bring it to that meeting every month or, 1 month, the rest of the group has either had that problem or knows somebody who has had that problem or has dealt with that type of situation and says, hey, here's how I dealt with it. For me, mentors as well as mastermind groups have been, extremely important for, the growth of our business. And we've actually set up similar scenarios within our franchise system where we call them momentum groups, but where we create groups of existing franchise owners within our College Hunks franchise system, and we have them meet and talk about, their challenges and frustrations and best practices and victories as franchise owners. So it's a way for them to sort of, share and grow with each other.
That's cool. No, I like that. I think it has real value. I mean, to me, like having a real mentor who will tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear it, has a lot of value.
Yeah, I mean, books, conferences, like this type of format, environment, mastermind groups, those to me are some of the best return on investment that you can make, because they don't cost a lot of money. They cost, in some cases, a time investment. But the types of ideas or takeaway that comes from those can add hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to the business in the long run.
So you're a little young for me to ask a couple of these questions, but like kind of talk about future and legacy, right? Because you seem to be a pretty plan-centric
I'm not that
guy.
young anymore, by the way. I have to keep up appearances because of the name of the company. But
well, that's all right. It's okay. You're not 50 either.
Okay.
Okay. So, and but think about the future and legacy, right? Because you guys have done a lot, and I think I think that's probably important to you. What are a couple of things that you're thinking about, kind of down the road, your goals and things like that?
Sure. So we kind of have our ideological vision as a brand, and then we kind of have our financial goal and vision as an organization. So our ideological vision is to become one of the largest, most popular employers of a collegiate workforce in the country, and almost like a launching pad of entrepreneurship. So, so that we'll have had, success stories of, former employees who have gone on to, own franchises, or former employees who have gone on to start their own businesses. That's the type of legacy that we want to be able to lead and share stories and be talked about. The size of our business, within the next 3 to 5 years, we want to be at 150 franchises and 100 million in system-wide revenue. That's kind of, what we're working towards. And then, long term, we say we want to be the Starbucks of the moving and hauling industry, a truck on every corner, an iconic brand that kind of, stems beyond its industry. It's recognizable for what it does in the community, and it's the top of mind. If you think you're going to, get a cup of coffee or meet your friends, you're going to Starbucks. We want, the same top of mind awareness to be, thought about 20, 30 years from now when it comes to moving and hauling.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to ask like one more question, actually 2 more questions, and then I'm going to do like a little rapid fire thing, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. So in Tampa, right, because we always talk about like there's all kinds of challenges, like here people talk all the time about all the issues we have. Is there an entrepreneur that you really admire who's a Tampa entrepreneur, and who is that and why?
Yeah, actually several of them, but I would say probably the most impressive one that I would say is a mentor of mine, John Sykes. The guy who started Sykes. He's actually my neighbor, and what he's done, from a philanthropic standpoint with the University of Tampa. Right. But the thing I admire about him, he's very humble. I mean, he's over 80, works like he's broke, right. And he does a lot of work with horses now. And we were having dinner with him. My wife said to him, "Oh, so is that your hobby now?" He's said emphatically, "No, it's not a hobby. It's a business." And he said, somebody asked him, what do entrepreneurs do when they retire? And he said he looked at the lady like she was crazy. He said, "Entrepreneurs don't retire." Right. For me to kind of get some guidance from him and to see what he's done not only for the community, but how much success he's had in business, and some of the advice he was giving me is, it's okay for you to diversify and expand your business, but make sure it fits within your existing sort of infrastructure of what you do. So, in his example, he had call centers, and so, or he actually started out, they were doing technical writing for, IT companies, right. And then they, diversified into call centers, but it wasn't like a separate business. It was just, something on top of what they already did.
You could cross-sell his existing customers.
And so that was kind of something for me, is like, okay, what can we do in our business? We've got a call center, we have trucks, we have labor. So down the road, in terms of diversifying, we need to be able to leverage those assets instead of just going out and trying to do something completely different.
That makes sense. So if you were starting your career all over again, tell me one thing you would do different. Oh man.
If I had to start it all over again, one thing I would do different probably would be that I would have spent more time doing due diligence on the technology to support our business early on, because it's we kind of got married to a technology platform early on that we had to license, and we didn't own the code, and so as we grew and had to make customization and try to scale with it, it started becoming a handicap or a bottleneck. Whereas if we had done a little more due diligence early on, found something that was a little bit more dynamic that could have scaled with us, we probably wouldn't have had it. It wouldn't have been as expensive as a challenge as we've dealt with.
Well, next time we have people in this room who can.
I would imagine that. Yeah,
we can hook you up over here. So we kind of do this thing. You've seen Inside the Actors Studio, right?
I think I've seen it, but I really haven't
All right.
seen it.
So we kind of play these little rapid fire questions at the end. So first thing that pops into your head, right?
Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Got it.
All right.
I can do that.
In one word, characterize your life as an entrepreneur.
Hectic.
Okay. What item do you own that you would never sell?
How fast am I supposed to go on these? I'll say my house.
Okay. All right. If you could be any animal, what animal would you choose to be?
I would choose to be a lion.
What historical figure do you admire the most?
Abe Lincoln.
What's more important, speed, strength, or
I think
stamina?
my mom just laughed when I said that.
I know.
She knows I didn't study much in history class.
That's
That's
okay.
why.
So what's more important, speed, strength, or stamina?
I think speed and recovery, because I've heard people say, it's a marathon but not a race, but I think it's actually a series of sprints and recovery. I read a book called Managing Energy, Not Time is the Key to Peak Performance. And so I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs in particular, will burn themselves out just running, and they don't ever stop, unplug, they don't ever stop, refresh, they don't ever, decompress, and you can't be your most effective performer if you never stop and unplug. So, I look at it more from an athlete standpoint. The players, they train, and then they play their game, and then they rest, and then they train, they play their game, and they rest.
That's
and
true.
so, that's, I think, speed and recovery.
All right. What's your favorite word?
My favorite word would be, I would say 2 words, oh well. Like, when something goes wrong, oh well.
All right, I like that. What irritates you or makes you angry?
Probably narrow-minded or closed-minded people kind of really irritates me. And what I mean by that is there's always different ways to look at things and different approaches, and especially in business and collaborate, in a team environment, you got to be open-minded because it's all about collaboration. And so when you have people that, think it's like one way is the only way and they can't see other perspectives or see other sides of the table, that really irks me.
So what's your favorite noise or smell?
Noise or smell? Noise, probably silence, because I live on Bayshore and it's really noisy out there. Smell, bananas.
Okay.
Who came up with these questions? I'm just kidding.
How about this one? What's your most unusual skill?
My most unusual skill? Oh, man.
Should I ask your mom?
I wish I had had preparation for these.
No, that's no fun.
Yeah. I don't know. Jen, you got any ideas?
She's like, I'm not answering that question.
Unusual skill.
All right. I'll give you
I'll
that.
come back to that. Probably figuring out ways to get on TV, because we've had some pretty crafty ways to do that.
All right. So who do you think is amazing at what they do?
Charles Barkley.
Well, I agree with that. I
Because
love
I don't know if you guys
Charles.
ever watched him on TV. He's a great basketball player, but he's on this TV show called Inside the NBA, and he's hilarious. He says whatever the heck he feels like saying.
right.
A lot of stuff he says is probably borderline offensive, would get other TV personalities fired, and it actually, gets him, raises and adulation. So I've been a fan of his since I was a little kid. So.
Who's your favorite band or favorite album of all time?
Band or album? I was a big Eminem fan in college, so I'll probably say.
All right, I'm cool with that.
I'll probably say probably the I forget his album, but I listened to him in college.
Eminem.
So,
All right,
yeah.
I like that. If heaven exists, right? What would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome to the party.
All right. Awesome. So give a big round of applause to Nick.
That was fun. I like that.
Okay, so we're going to open up to questions, so if anybody in the audience has questions.
And we got 4 more books, so whoever asks the first 4 questions will get a copy of the book. I saw his hand up go first.
Well, what would you say the most important decision you made in your business, whether it was strategic or obscure or not? What would you say the one seminal thing that you look back and think that was pretty smart?
The most important decision was first moving to Tampa. That was honestly the most important decision because we wanted to franchise, and you know, I love the Tampa community. I describe it as a big small town. It's, you know, a small town with big city amenities. It's got a really great business community. I mean, you know, you can connect with and meet with you know, some pretty influential people very easily. And it's laid back, so you know, the quality of life, the cost of life, you can live comfortably and invest in your business, as opposed to, you know, like up in DC or New York. I mean, the cost of living is so high there, it's really hard to make self-sacrifices while you're also trying to, you know, grow the business. So that, number one. Number two was getting our office, our building in Ybor City. That's where we're headquartered. We bought a building, renovated it, and that area is just phenomenal, you know, for a work environment, in terms of for employees, for company culture. When we bring outside investors or franchise owners, you know, it's just got such a unique vibe, especially obviously during the daytime. In the night, it can get a little bit, you know, touch and go sometimes, but during the daytime, it's great. So those would be the 2 key decisions. Give him a book.
Yep.
And I think I saw yours, Mike.
Yeah, quick question. What's the biggest challenge you have with your franchisees? Number one, because I know that world, so I'm just curious what your biggest challenge is with them scattered all over.
That actually, having them scattered is a challenge because, you know, in franchising, one of the best practices if you want to franchise your business in many cases is to kind of, you know, build concentric circles around of your home base so that you can easily support them, easily coach them. But, you know, ours is not really a retail concept. So we didn't have, you know, it's not like we could put a college Hunks office on every corner. Ours were territory based. So when we started franchising, we were pretty much selling franchises, you know, in every city. And you know, it was very difficult, especially early on, to be able to afford to, you know, fly out and support somebody at their franchise in San Francisco, for example. You know, we have somebody now, Justin Waltz, who's here, who actually, you know, he goes and visits all of our franchises for grand opening, for you know, annual coaching. We do a lot of virtual site visits now, you know, using, you know, technology like GoToMeeting or with Skype and that sort of thing, Google Hangouts. So that was probably the early on a big challenge. You know, for us, we'd say that, you know, our 4 priorities as an organization in terms of franchising is franchisee revenue, franchisee profitability, franchisee satisfaction, and selling more franchises. So if we get number 1, 2, and 3 right, selling more franchises will be, you know, easy. And so, you know, you're dealing with people with different personalities. Not everybody is cut from an entrepreneurial cloth who buys a franchise. So sometimes, you know, they're different perspectives. They're used to, you know, working in the corporate world 20, 30 years and having everything sort of laid out for them, as opposed to understanding the personal accountability of, you know, making it successful, kind of back to the gym membership mentality. So those are probably some of the challenges, is, you know, dealing with the different personalities, understanding, you know, what each franchisee needs to really, from us, to really help them be successful. And, you know, you'll hear some franchisors say, you know, we're striving for franchise happiness, but I think that's kind of difficult to get to because nobody's ever going to be completely happy with, you know, the system that they bought into. So, you know, for us, we're looking for franchise satisfaction and fulfillment, and we just want to keep, you know, raising the bar and trying to meet their, you know, happiness expectations. I think he gets a book too. And right here, Mike.
Mike, okay.
Yes.
What was your college major, and do you feel like that major actually helped you succeed in your company, being an entrepreneur, or do you think that you would have rather spent those 4 years building your business?
So the question is, what was my major in college, and, you know, do I feel like it was helpful in my business, and then do I wish I'd spent those years building my business? So I studied economics and finance. I went to a liberal arts college, so they didn't really have a, you know, a business management or marketing degree or an entrepreneurship program. So it was kind of the closest thing that I thought, you know, would help me be in a position to make money one day, I guess. And it was in my case, it was more theoretical and academic than actually, real world applicable. That being said, I did learn a lot of, I think, problem solving skills, analytical skills, spreadsheet skills that have helped, lend themselves to operating as a business owner. In hindsight, probably the only thing I wish I had done differently is kind of expanded my mind in terms of what entrepreneurship really was. Like, I don't know if I would have been even open-minded to coming to an event like this when I was in college, because it just wasn't on the forefront of what I thought about. Like I was telling somebody earlier, I actually didn't know what an entrepreneur was until we started the business. People would be like, "Oh, so you're an entrepreneur?" I'm like, "Oh, I guess that's what that word means. People who start businesses." So, obviously college is a really unique opportunity because you have less responsibility in most cases, and you have a wealth of resources at your fingertips, whether it's alumni, school, professors, the library, and all that sort of thing. So, I probably could have gotten a lot more help, if we were, consciously working on the business while we were, also, going to class. So you give her a book. Let me see that. Can I see that last book real quick? So, who wants this one? Anybody can have it. Anybody at all. Anybody at all. Thank you.
I actually had a question though.
Yes. And she had a question.
Yeah, I did. Ironically, I am finance and economics right now, also at the University of Tampa. And so what was kind of your click point where you said you went to college, did the whole, motions, went into corporate, and then you jumped ship and now you have an entrepreneurial venture? What was that click point that made you change?
So I'll answer that question with two things. One, I want to make a point about what she just did. First of all, give her a round of applause for coming up and doing it. That's a real basic example, but the point I made about that, point I wanted to make about that is, one of the keys to anybody being successful in business is taking action. And I've heard people say, in order to have the things that other people don't, you have to be willing to do the things that other people won't. And, a lot of entrepreneurs have to be willing to sort of step out of their shell and kind of put themselves in uncomfortable situations. I held the book up and said, "Hey, who wants it?" Most people were like, kind of, "Hey," raise their hand, because that's what you would normally do. A couple of people, thought, like, does he want me to actually come up and walk in front of the camera and grab it? And then finally, a couple of people actually, got up to do it. So I think it's just kind of a real, simple example of the importance of taking action. And when you do see an opportunity, running out and grabbing it and making it happen. So also, I sometimes say that also, benefits to sit in the front row, but, she was a couple rows back, so, she's just a little quicker on the draw, although you had a long table to get around drawing. To answer your second question, when did it click that we were actually going to, kind of abandon the traditional career path and start the business? For me, it was after college, and it was when we had the corporate position, and I was applying my degree in a corporate environment, but I just really felt unfulfilled. I didn't enjoy it. Maybe it was the company I was working for, maybe it was the type of work I was doing. It just didn't feel right. And I would tell my parents, I would say, I'm just not happy doing this. I'm not fulfilled doing this. And so when we did quit our jobs, of course our parents were a little skeptical, but I came home one day and it was probably 9, 10 o'clock at night. I'm telling my dad, "Listen, Dad, I was up since 5 in the morning. I emptied out the truck. We went and did 5 jobs. Now I'm doing bookkeeping and calling back customers. So I've been up for 14 hours working, but I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all." And he was like, "Well, you really found something that you like and you enjoy to do." And it wasn't that I enjoyed hauling junk. It wasn't that I enjoyed, doing, paperwork or calling back customers. What I enjoyed was the process of kind of, building something for myself and the creative process and, trying to make it work and seeing the little, mini successes that happen from it. So for me, that's when it clicked, okay, I made the right decision. That's when my parents kind of realized, okay, he made the right decision. So, I tell a lot of people there's nothing wrong with working for somebody else at all. We have, 100 employees that work for us here in Tampa, over 1,000, across the country that work for ÉCollege Hunks. for us, what we want to do is we want to create an environment for them where they feel empowered to make decisions as if they own the company, where they, feel like they have, an impact on the decisions that they make every day. So, that would be my only other encouragement to people if they do pursue corporate careers, try to find a place where they feel like, their efforts make an impact and find a place where, it's an environment that they enjoy, a team they enjoy to work with. And so, our employees, we basically call them all entrepreneurs. They're entrepreneurs within our, organization. But yeah, for me, that's kind of when it clicked was, kind of the process of feeling unfulfilled and saying, I got to find a different way. So there's no more book incentives, but you can still take questions. Yes?
As an entrepreneur myself, I know that wisdom is a big part of success in entrepreneurship. So the wise decision to do franchising, I know that franchising, being married to somebody who's a franchise guru, I know that franchising is not the most simplest approach as far as growing your idea in your business. But where did that idea of franchising come from? Is that something that you just got lucky and you overheard a conversation, or did you have the blessing of having a parent or some mentor say to you, if you want to expand if you want to reach your vision, go this route and that might be it. But having said that, franchising is not for the faint of heart.
100%.
So please,
yes.
the wisdom behind it.
So the question was, how do we decide on franchising and recognizing that franchising is not easy and it's not inexpensive to franchise your business, and how did we, decide that as the path of expansion? When we first started, people would actually ask us when we'd show up to the customer's house when it was just me and Omar and in a shiny truck. They'd say, hey, are you guys a franchise? So that kind of planted a little bug in my head. I was like, okay, I got to learn about this franchise. No, we're not a franchise. Maybe we will be. Why? Do you want to buy one? And so so we did read the E-Myth book by Michael Gerber, and he talks about franchising your business even if you don't intend to franchise it. So creating enough systems within your company so you could sell it to somebody else, even if you don't intend to do that. Because what that does is it frees you from the sort of connection between you as the owner and the business itself. Now, there's always going to be more levels of complexity and scale that you're going to have to be involved in some capacity or another. But that was kind of like the second sort of exposure we had to franchising. So we went to a conference, the IFA, the International Franchise Association. We went to a conference that they hosted, and there was a couple breakout sessions about how to franchise your business and why to franchise your business. And people will franchise their business typically for 4 reasons. One, they're limited on capital to expand into other markets. Number 2, they're limited on resources to do it. I should say there's 3 reasons. 1, they're limited on capital. Number 2, they're limited on staff. And number 3, they're limited on a timeline, meaning they want to expand quickly. And for us, we were kind of limited on all 3. I mean, we didn't have a large outside capital raise that we could go open up other locations. We didn't have a big management team that could go out and open different locations. And I guess psychologically, we just wanted to be a national brand as quickly as we possibly could. We knew we were in a competitive industry. We knew we had a catchy name. And I don't know whether it was ego or whether it was, just kind of ambition. We wanted to be a national brand. So franchising was the path for us to do that. A lot of people do have this glorified notion. You seem to obviously have a more realistic notion of what franchising is all about. A lot of people have a glorified notion of, hey, I'll franchise my business and I'll just get royalty checks and I won't have to do any work and I'm getting money off the efforts of other people. But it really has nothing to do with that. I've heard a lot of people with successful, small businesses say, hey, I want to franchise my business. That's the dream. Then I can just go live on the beach and let everybody else do the work. Franchising, we knew hauling junk and moving, but we didn't know franchising. So when we did that, back to the horse analogy, it was like, getting a whole new horse and having to train it and, spend a lot of money on developing the infrastructure and the systems, not only to sell franchises, but more importantly, to support them. Had to bring on people onto our team that had experience and expertise to help us do that. So that for us, we've embraced that as our industry and the business that we're in. Yes, we haul junk and move. Yes, we do a lot of marketing, but the franchising industry is a community in itself that we've really embraced and gotten to be a part of. Surrounded ourselves by successful franchisors who have had all the problems with their franchise owners or with their investors or with their employees, so we can understand some of the pitfalls that could be common in that.
Cool.
Don, yes.
What's the #1 piece of advice you would give to a new franchisee?
To a new franchisee? In our company or any company? Well, you know what? It's very simple. I would say follow the system. Follow the system. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's a reason that there's a franchise model. There's a reason that the franchisee is buying the model from the franchisor. Now, in our case, we're not a McDonald's where we're going to say, hey, if you don't put the pickles on this way, we're going to sue you and kick you out of the franchise. We're what we call an emerging franchisor. So we look to our franchisees for ideas and feedback, because back when McDonald's was our size, the Egg McMuffin and the Filet-O-Fish sandwich were invented by a franchisee. So it's not like we don't look to our franchisees to come up with ideas or best practices to improve the system. But if a franchisee comes in and thinks that they're going to do it better or differently day one, it's going to be an expensive lesson, because there's sort of this box that we know works. And yes, we can do some pilot tests outside of it, but from day one, it's best to work the system, and that's how that's why somebody would be buying a franchise.
Virginia?
So, going to that, what would you say was your best first lesson in terms of trying to manage that quality control? What was the best first process that you found?
It really starts with training first and foremost. So they say an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. So for us, we spend a week of training where our franchise owners come in to Tampa and train in-house, and then we do weekly webinars, weekly bulletins, monthly conference calls, annual conferences, quarterly State of the Union. So it's constant communication. And probably the first sort of lesson was when we first started. We were limited on resources, so we didn't have somebody that could fly around the country, like Justin does now, and visit each franchise personally. We didn't have enough people, to put together a weekly bulletin and a weekly webinar. We were trying to pull it all together, so franchisees felt like they had bought it and then were kind of left out on an island and didn't have the communication and the touch point and the consistency. So once we started communicating more consistently and really celebrating and talking about the core values in the organization, then it became a much more, I would say, complete system and consistent system, because consistency is what franchising is all about. And nobody would argue that McDonald's makes the best hamburgers, but you could certainly say they make the most consistently mediocre hamburger in the world. And so that's what they're known for, and that's why they're so successful. That's why they serve billions and billions of people. Yes?
I think it's very appropriate, Nate, that Shark Tank is on TV.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
well, let me say something real quick about Shark Tank. This is just my personal thing. I want them to send me a royalty check, because I was on the very first episode of that show when nobody knew what the heck that show was, and I think maybe 1 million people watched our episode, and now 10 million people watch an episode every time that show airs, and they got it on 6 hours a night on CNBC and all this, and so it's like, man, if we had gone on now, we'd have gotten Mark Cuban wasn't a shark when we did it, so so anyway, that's my soapbox about Shark Tank. But
well, I work as a banker, so I'm really interested in how you started in the beginning with investors and how you got the money to start.
So we started organically. We started on a shoestring budget. We had our parents help co-sign for a bank loan to get the first truck, and of course it was collateralized by the vehicle itself. Omar and I had a few $1,000s saved up from our first few months of working in the corporate world. We were still living at home, with mom and dad, so we didn't have a lot of personal expenses that we had to shell out. So we got our first truck, we got a website, a phone number, a logo, and we went to work. I mean, we were, doing a lot of guerrilla marketing, putting the truck out, putting the signs out, like some of the stuff you guys still see here around town, we did ourselves early on when we first got started, knocking on real estate agents' doors, going to meet property managers. So it was a lot of hustle, and then we would just reinvest our profits. So we lived, relatively modestly, early on, so that we could reinvest into the business, so we could afford the franchise system and some of the marketing, and start hiring consultants to help us, fine tune what we had done. So, probably the reason why our growth has been somewhat linear and somewhat slow has because we haven't gone out and gotten a lot of outside seed capital. But in hindsight, I think it's actually been good for us because, if we had gone out and gotten a lot of money, let's say in 05, 06, and tried to really blow it out of the water as opposed to kind of go, slow and steady, when 08, 09, 010 came and the economy tanked, we would have, ran ourselves out of business because we would have, blown our investment on trying to, expand too quickly, and our franchisees wouldn't have succeeded. Whereas, we actually sort of weathered that economic downturn, albeit it felt like we were dragging an anchor through the sand, but we got through it and we actually grew during that process. But it also made us better business people because we had to make decisions, based on the fact that we had a very modest budget, and we had to make decisions based on the fact that we couldn't just go take a gamble at a bunch of different, big hires and big marketing campaigns. We had to do things more sort of strategically. So that's how we did. I'm not saying it's the right thing that, that all entrepreneurs do. Some people obviously in tech businesses are a little bit different. They, they need that outside capital to grow and invest and build their team and get scale and so forth. So I think it really depends on a case-by-case basis. Now we have a nice line of credit that we can dip into, like say during some of the seasonal winter time months, if there's a seasonal downturn that we need to adhere to, or some gaps in our franchise development. But for the most part, we've never had and never relied on outside capital.
Cool. Yes.
Yes.
I'm just curious, retrospectively, if you could take entrepreneurship as a major or a minor, or just like more classes in general, do you think you'd be better off now as you like?
So the question is, had I been able to take entrepreneurship as a major or minor, would I be better off? So I know there's kind of this sort of age-old question is, hey, can entrepreneurship be taught? Can entrepreneurship be, is it, born within you? And I don't think anybody would be here if we didn't believe it could be taught. Now, I don't know what the curriculum looks like for entrepreneurship, so I don't know whether or not I would truly benefit from it, from the class. So I can't speak from experience because we didn't have that curriculum when I was there. But I will say that I think there's certain elements of entrepreneurship that we're born with, those of you here in this room. The ability to see opportunities, the ability to envision the future, the ability to communicate the future and inspire people around you, the ability to take risks when other people are telling you that it's not a good idea, to recognize that 4 out of 5 businesses fail in the first 5 years, but we're going to start the business anyway because we're going to be the 1 out of 5 that succeed. Some of those sort of personality characteristics are we may be born with, but just like somebody might be born that can run fast or jump high, they still have to fine-tune their skill if they're going to make it to the NBA or if they're going to make it, in golf. Tiger Woods was perfecting his swing since he was a little kid, and he had coaches all along that would teach him how to swing. So I think entrepreneurship, the types of skills that are important to learn, financial management, sales, problem solving, people management skills, all of those types of skills are, fundamental to be successful in business and as an entrepreneur. So if they teach those things in entrepreneurship classes, then absolutely. The one thing I will say that I think entrepreneurship classes should do, and I don't know, maybe some do, is like I've seen some where they'll have business plan competitions or case studies, but then once the business plan is written or the case study is written, it's like, that's it, that's the end of the semester. I think the first third of the semester should be writing the business plan and the case study, and the next 2/3 should actually be going out and doing it, starting it, executing it, making it happen. And I think there's some programs that are starting to do that, but, because then you start to learn things like, what happens when you fail, or, what happens if you have a limited budget, or who do you try to, tap into to help you succeed. And a lot of those things when you're in college are a lot easier to, bounce back from when you kind of have the safety net of the school behind you. So those would be my 2 cents on that.
Cool. I think we had one more back there.
In the back.
So I want to ask a question about partnerships. So I'm an owner myself, and I get asked all the time, like, how do you know that person is the right person to have that partnership with? So what would you say would be the 3 red flags to not do a business partnership with somebody?
Before you're already in the partnership, like when you're thinking about going into it? So, I mentioned earlier, I think it's important that the vision and the values be in alignment. So that's number one. Because if they're in misalignment at any point, whether it's the beginning or when you're already in a partnership, if they're not brought back into alignment, the partnership is going to fall apart. One thing that I'll often say is, could I have gotten to this point without my partner, and or would I have wanted to? without my partner. And so if you're looking into the future, is can I get to where I'm trying to go without this person, and or would I want to get to where I'm going without that person? And that'll help maybe provide some clarity as to whether that person can help you get there more effectively or faster, or will be more enjoyable to get there with. If it's a friend, yes, it's fun to have a friend who's a business partner because we can celebrate the victories, we can support each other when stuff doesn't go well. But I also think to myself, looking back, that we couldn't have gotten to this point if it wasn't for our partnership, and I wouldn't have wanted to try and get here without having my business partner. So I think you can use that same sort of reflective thinking, thinking into the future. And of course, you want to make sure the skill sets are complementary. You want to make sure the commitment is going to be there. If the drive and focus that you're going to have is going to be the same that person is going to have as well.
Awesome.
So I think.
All right, great. Give Nick another round of applause.